Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another GeekVerse review. Many are dropping this week. I am the hot dog fingers, Trash Snail, and I'm joined by
The googly-eyed Kirklin Patzer.
Boom, there you go. As I said, we got lots of reviews. Taylor did a solo review for Halo, which I have not listened, but apparently he went insane, so you got to listen to that. We did Sonic. We got this one right now. I'm going to be dropping my ambulance review probably Monday-ish, and we got Moon Knight coming up. We'll have a newscast. Lots of big things popping off. I'm scared to throw to Kirkland because this film deals with a lot of possible points of what could happen. So I'll just take the easy route because I want to get in the review and say all links are below. Social media, our podcast network, our podcast feeds for Geekverse. We got a whole bunch of them talking about reviews. Jeez, like this is the thing. Like it's a good thing, and I'm happy people are listening and supporting us as always. We got Lego Star Wars coming out too on Tuesday. That review for that, and that one's going to be a big one. So yeah, just reviews. It's that time. We were looking at the calendar a few weeks ago, and like from April to about June, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like the next few weeks, we got Beats, we got Halo every week, we got Moon Knight every week, we have Northman coming up. We got,
That's right.
yeah, I got a trailer with this movie, and fuck, I'm so ready. I'm so ready to see the Northman. Like I
I
kind
keep
of,
getting ads on like my mobile app on whatever I'm watching
oh
YouTube. It's
yeah,
always just Willem Dafoe like in that cave,
are
just
you
looking like
ready?
yeah.
Saying the coolest,
feel like
evilest shit ever.
feel like he's just talking directly to me because he's
Oh,
just staring like right into the
100%.
camera.
I know he would did that Sony game, but Sony needs to get him to do more video games. Like he'd be a great like
Oh yeah.
narrator or something like that. But no, that like I not that I had forgot about that movie, but I guess I just forgot how close it was, and I just forgot
hmm
about how good it looked. And I think it was just the first trailer they played in front of this movie, but I was like, damn, I cannot fucking like wait to see the Northman. It's gonna
Oh
be a
yeah.
crazy ass movie.
Anya
And
Taylor
then
Joy.
yo, yeah, Nicole Kidman, Defoe. There's some other great people in there. And I thought there was one other thing coming out. Oh, me and Taylor are gonna review that. I don't even know the title of the movie. I just keep calling it the Nick Cage movie. It's like the immersive weight of incredible talent or something like that. Like
That's very close.
I really don't care. It's just Nick Cage playing himself with Pedro Pascal, and I'm sold right there. So we'll be doing that. So tons of stuff. Best way to support us is subscribe, like, rate, review, but also subscribe on Patreon. Join any tier that supports us, that creates new content, that makes time so we can do these reviews, do side quests, do multiple newscasts, things like that. So we couldn't do it without you, and I couldn't do this review without Kirkland Patzer. Like I could, but it wouldn't be as good, because people they tune in and they're like, "Oh, it's just a solo Travis review, 1 star, guy on cocaine." And they're probably in that review right now. He's on his 8 ball. He's talking too fast, but
Calling
I do.
himself hot dog fingers. What is
Yeah,
this guy all about?
yeah, I do that because there's so much to promote. But yeah, so as always, we'll be giving a non-spoiler version for this review, and this is one I don't want to spoil our thoughts, but I would definitely say listen to this and do not just be like, oh, I don't really care. I don't know much of the movie. I'll just listen to spoilers. And I'll go first because I guess I'm already rambling about how I feel about this. This movie you got
Do
to
it.
see in theaters, and even if you don't want to see in theaters, because like we just listed off, there is tons of movies out, so it does get expensive stuff like that. So at some point, whether it's in theaters, at home, you have to see this movie. It's all the two of the toughest reviews I've always said are reviews when we do retrospectives of just movies we like or are really good, because it's like, especially something like we did American Beauty, which will come up in this review kind of a few times recently, and it was fun because you guys hadn't seen it, and it's been like a while since, not a while, but it's been like a while since I talked about it in like a podcast form and like in depth. But still, it's like when you have a movie that's been around for 20, 30 years, that's just everyone's talking about how good it is. How do you continue that? How do you say what people haven't already said? And that's for this movie, where I saw all the reviews and there's all this high praise, and I just feel like anything I'm gonna say in this review sounds like hyperbolic. Like people be like, I don't believe it. It's just Travis like just blowing this movie out of the water. It can't be that good. So I kind of hate doing that, but like every hyperbolic phrase you could describe a great film, I would use for this movie. It's one of these, just the second it was over, it's like, this is an all-timer. This is this list of, if I were to make the 50 greatest movies, maybe like 25, 10, whatever it may be, it's on those lists. It's one of those movies that instantly was, okay, this is one of my favorites. And it's good to do that with something that's like non-comic book or non-geek related, because like you have something like The Batman this year, that just felt like a movie I've been waiting for my whole life. This is a movie that I saw one teaser for it, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to watch anything more because we're not going to cover that much on Geek First. And I'm excited. Anytime A24 puts out something, I want to see it. And this movie just has everything you want in a great film, or at least for me. You have action, you have suspense, you have drama, you have thriller, you have like love, you have a rom-comness, you have like horror vibes. Like it. the fact that this film exists and it's fucking wild, like in an A24 way, and not just because like the minor plot is like it's a movie about the multiverse and different kind of past and whatnot, but it's like there's just certain things when they're doing certain fight scenes where I'm like, man, this is happening right now. It was great that I only had like 6 or 7 people in my theater, but it felt like this very fun shared experience because there's certain moments that you just can't believe are actually happening on screen, and there's stuff in this movie that is fucking crazy and really weird, but they somehow managed to make it really heartfelt and it hits you in every fiber of your being. And I can't wait to tell them spoilers. There's just certain moments or maybe realities where it's like this should feel really stupid, and it does to a point, but then it just hits you in the heartstrings. And I was tearing up multiple times, especially near the end of this movie, because there's you know it might be a weird statement like how do you relate to a movie about a Chinese 60-year-old woman, but there's multiple things in this movie that I really related to and hit me personally, and that's where I think maybe even I think as a film it's great. I had a different, more personal journey with this movie that I was like, man, this just feels just like some of my life points. Not the multiverse stuff, unfortunately, I didn't do any of that things, but yeah, this film is, it's just incredible. It's one of these that I can't wait to see again. I was not planning on seeing this again, but I think I'm going to with Emily. So I really want you to go to the theaters and see this because A24 stuff is really like I wouldn't even say hit or miss. I'd say like hit and then miss, 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 miss. A little bit of a hit with her, and that's like with A24 with a lot of people, right? But this just out of all the A24 things I've seen, just if we're keeping in that category, I feel like this is their masterpiece or this crown jewel of, especially too, there's so many huge scenes or maybe like action stuff that if you look at this budget, it's a small budget film. It does not feel that way. Like it looks fantastic. It looks beautiful. And I can't say enough praise about it. And I guess like the most, what I'll say is the most like minor spoil. It doesn't spoil anything the plot, but it's just this film the next day made me feel good. It gave a little extra pep in my step, and I feel like it's like what we did with American Beauty when we talked about. I thought we did something recently, another review like this. I'll probably think about, but American Beauty, or for me, About Time, or Good Will Hunting. I'm somebody, I've said before, I always prefer darker films, and that's my horror side. That's why I love the Batman, because it's like, oh, it's so dark and gloomy and emo. It's great, but this is just one of these films that it makes you, not that I don't appreciate it, but it gives you that little reminder of like appreciating your life, and it just makes you so kind of happy. And that's what I was not going to take from this when I was going into it. Not that I didn't think it would happen, but it was just overwhelming of, man, this is one of those films that just makes you appreciate life a little bit more. And I was like that the next day at work. I was a bit more happy. I was at work, but I was like, I'm a bit more happier to people. I was more cheerful and things. And it just has a great overall message. Great movie. Fantastic performances by everybody. Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Lee Curtis kills it. I got to look up her name because she's like a relatively newcomer, but the woman that plays the daughter, she's fantastic.
Stephanie, it's like HSU. I don't know how to say that last
So
name, but
either way, yeah. So I won't butcher it. I'll find out about later. Like we did to Barry Keoghan for whole months. We butchered his name through Eternals and Batman. But she's somebody I want to see in just a bunch of stuff. The guy that plays the dad, yeah, it's just a phenomenal movie. I can't say enough about it. I'm excited to be more specific about my thoughts because it's one of these that I just want to tell. It's one of those weird sells where you got to tell people like, just trust me, like go see it and you'll enjoy it. But you don't want to give too much away. But yeah, absolutely love it. Can't say enough. But this is one of my favorite films. It lives up to all that hype that I had heard. So, Kirk
yeah,
Patzer, what were your
well said.
thoughts?
Just a little side note here. The dad was actually Short Round from Indiana Jones, and the
Really?
kid from the Goonies. I found that out
Holy
after I watched it. That blew my mind.
shit. Oh my god, that just made this movie even better.
Yeah, isn't that
Holy
crazy?
shit. Oh my god, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
he was phenomenal. I love that character. But yeah, no, you covered a lot of bases in your little mini review there, spoiler free. So instead of repeating all those things, I'll just say like I definitely agree with that. This movie is just something incredibly special, and I just felt
Mm.
that like I saw this with myself at 9:55, and then there
I
was a
saw
couple
this in myself.
there's a couple like to the lower right, and like that was my kind of shared experience. So it was kind of an interesting one. I didn't really know anything about this movie. I'd seen like one trailer, I think at the beginning of the year when we were going over our year or our movies and
Yeah,
the
something
upcoming
like
year
that, yeah.
preview.
Because
But
we
like
didn't
I didn't
cover too
remember.
much.
I didn't remember anything from the trailer. I think in the back of my mind, I just heard that it was like a kung fu movie, so I was just looking forward to that. But this is so something in its own like genre. It's like a genre breaking movie, I would say. It covers so
Hmm.
many bases. You mentioned like the emotional stuff. The action was so great. This does not feel like a lower budget movie at all. Like there was so many CGI moments that just looked really good, and the action with like the slow mo that they incorporated in certain fight scenes, and just the effects. It looked really well polished, and yeah, A24, man. I haven't seen a movie that I've just hated from them. I'd say the lowest one on the list that I've seen it would be The Witch, just because I watched that and I was in a weird headspace. I wasn't expecting the movie I was going to be getting,
Yeah.
but
And they're always interesting, at least. I've never
yeah,
seen an A24 movie where, even if it wasn't my cup of tea, as far as like, like even something like Hereditary, which I feel like you and Dylan liked a lot more than me, it's still, from the concept of it, it's like, oh, I still enjoy this quite a bit. I think it's just
yeah,
because I've always said this as a preview. Eventually, one day when we do make GV films, like, most of us still like this weird shit. And it's like,
oh
anytime
yeah,
I see a movie like this, it's like, fuck, this is the stuff I want to be making. It's just like,
oh
it's
absolutely.
it's because even if it's not bad, but even if it's not your cup of tea, it sticks with you because you're like, fuck, like, there's some memorable stuff, and this film has that too, in tenfold.
It always feels very unique when I'm going to sit down and watch an A24 movie, and this one just completely blew my mind. It was so fun to watch. Like I'm excited to rewatch it. I was mentioning to Travis, but like before the cast, I feel like I do want to rewatch it to like fully grasp
Hmm.
everything. I feel like I fortunately did a pretty good job of that on the first viewing, but it's just one that it's not like it's gonna be work like rewatching the movie. I had that experience a little bit with Tenant, where I'm like, okay, I love this movie, but like I
Hmm.
really want to focus on the concept here. I feel like if I rewatch this movie, I'll just be doing it because it's so fun to watch. The characters are so great to follow. Even the side characters that I just thought they were like comedic relief at certain point. Like they became like really fleshed out to an extent, and I really liked a lot of the characters that were introduced. And yeah, no, this is a good one. Let's just I think let's jump into spoilers.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd recommend it to
Mhm.
if you've seen an A24 movie and you like them. I honestly would just recommend this movie to kind of everyone because as you were mentioning, like it covers a lot of bases. It's got the rom-com elements. The comedy in it was really good. Like I was genuinely laughing with a lot of the
Mhm.
characters. The husband again, he was just so like positive and happy, and he just like warmed my heart. He was just such a great character to have in there. So yeah, I'd recommend this to basically everyone. It's funny, Shay is very selective with movies, and I was even like, man, like I really want you to see this movie.
Mhm.
She doesn't like weird movies, but this is like it's just such a good, heartwarming one by
I
the
think,
end of it.
yeah, I think it's accessible enough because, like I said, usually when Emily asks me like, "Oh, what are you seeing or what's next on review?" and I'm like, "Oh, it's this," but it's A24. She's like, "Oh yeah, I don't need to see that." Like when I say those words, for her, it's the opposite of like, not that she would never check them out. She just knows like, okay, I don't need to go sit in a theater for 2.5 hours. It's like I'd be happy to see this at home, but it's the same thing where I feel. It's a good mix of accessible but weird at the same time. I feel like it gets weirder as the film goes along. But
Yeah.
because maybe that first act is a bit more, I won't say mainstream, but a bit more easier opposed to something like Hereditary, which right away is just super depressing and dark. Or you got, like you said, The
Yeah, you
Witch, where
feel
it's just like you
sick.
can't even understand half these people, and you're just like, what's going on? And like that's the thing
Just
where
disturbing.
this, I feel like the good thing is with like comic book movies and stuff like that, the concept of this idea of the multiverse and stuff like that, it's becoming a bit more mainstream. So I feel like it starts
Hmm.
as like, oh, this is just like kind of a fun adventure movie, and it always stays as a fun adventure movie. It just gets a lot more deep and a lot more trippy as it goes on with each second. So yeah. Oh, that's what I was gonna say too. Yeah, this is a movie for me as well. When it ended, I honestly could have watched it again right at that moment. It's one of those type of films that I think it's just like just around 2:15, something like that. But it breezed by, and it's such a good film that sometimes even great films, you're like, okay, I could wait a little bit to see this again. Something like we talk about other A24 stuff, right? If it's like really heavy, it's like, okay, I don't need to see Hereditary right
Yeah.
again after. I can wait a couple months to watch this. But this movie, I could pop this on right away. I could have walked into another showing at that point and be like, okay, play it again. Because I'm sure, especially, there's things I even miss, but it's just that good where it's I can't wait to. This is one I don't buy physical stuff that much, but I'll probably buy this one because I could see this just randomly being like, oh, I'd like to put this on, watch it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I gotta say though, I hate the poster for it with all the googly eyes because it freaks me out. I mentioned before
yes,
like the tryptophobia on it with just like tiny little circles. It just sets me off. So
you chose this background, not me. So you're setting your
no,
own
this one's
stuff
not
up.
bad.
Okay.
It's like the actual like this one's nice and vibrant and colorful, but like the actual one where it just says everything everywhere all at once, and there's just plaster with googly eyes. I'm
Hmm.
not even gonna pull it up. You can do that on
No.
your own.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Well, yeah,
nonetheless.
as it sounds like we personally recommend this movie a lot. So definitely, we're telling you, usually you say, oh, go ahead if you don't care. No, no, no. Go watch the film. Listen to us. If you've never listened to us before, go check it out. Especially if it's a smaller film, so support them and things like that. But yeah, go check it out. Come back, and the spoilers will be waiting for you. So we're going to take an ad break, and then we're going to do a deep dive. And we're back. So, oh boy, this is an interesting thing. Where do you want to start with this?
Um, we could just start with like the family,
Mm-hmm.
like the whole concept of them living on their little laundromat, just their little small business they got going, and I guess just the start of the movie in general. I think it did a really good job at introducing like the main players fairly quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
then like it gets weird not right away. So you have a moment to like kind of learn who the main players are before you get into the multiverse stuff. But like even just this is probably just an A24 style or the director's style or something. But it just when it opened up, it already felt like I was wanting to like look for things in the background because there's just so much like going on with their house of just
Mm-hmm.
like clutter and things, and there was like googly eyes on certain areas, and I just knew that was like a little I don't know signature thing from like the poster and like that trailer of her putting it on her forehead. So I was just like, hey, what's the significance with
Yeah.
these googly eyes here? And um, yeah, it was just a really great opening to the movie, in my opinion.
That is one of the best things when we don't have to cover something to death in the podcast, and it's like because I'm sure maybe could have figured out if we watched and break down trailers and stuff like that. But yeah, it was okay. I know googly's eyes are a thing here, and yeah, they introduced the family and our kind of collection of characters. It's a husband and wife with a daughter who's I would say early 20s. Like she's
Yeah.
moved out. She's moved out, right? I would. Yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
I'm not sure. She's
They
definitely.
didn't.
I'd
Yeah,
say she's like at least working at the laundromat. It seemed
yeah,
like she
yeah.
was really close to the family still.
Because it's not strange, because like, or it's not particularly said because she does come out and help the family quite a bit, and they always need her,
Hmm.
especially with tax and stuff. But it's husband and wife, daughter, and and a father-in-law slash father who needs a lot of help because he's sick and everything like that. And yeah, they're running this laundromat, and yeah, Michelle, yeah, I've seen like she's been around like our whole lives and just like random stuff and everything. And I just got to start with her because she goes through like such a journey in the movie. But in the beginning of the film, you don't necessarily, not that you dislike her, but you might not like, you are kind of, you're rooting for her to change, especially she has that early interaction with the daughter because they've set up that her daughter is gay and she wants, like, there's this struggle of like, how do you introduce this daughter's friend or girlfriend to the elder who that's not a thing, that's, he would look down upon and everything like that. And there's this weird take where, and it's weird on purpose, where she says, "Oh, this is just her friend," and she gets mad, and everyone leaves and everything like that. And she's leaving, and I gotta pull up the character's name because people know this from the reviews. I'm terrible if it's not Evelyn. So she's running to the car to stop Joy, and then she stops. Oh, I gotta talk to you, and she's like, "Stop eating snacks. You're getting fat." And in that moment, you're just like, "What's wrong with you?" And it put, because I wasn't sure where we were going, so it's just like, am I supposed to dislike this character? Am I rooting for her? Am I rooting against her? Everything like that. And you can just see that she does not like, you right away, you get the sense that she's not happy in her current life, and you kind of have the husband who he's around and he's very happy, but you don't get the exact motivation of what he's thinking until, and not too far, you find out that he wants a divorce. And that's one thing you're talking about, that obviously it's not weird right away, you're looking for stuff. I will plot it for, it's not weird right away, but it didn't also take too long to get to the point where the concept of the multiverse and traveling to it is introduced, which is good because there's so much stuff they have to actually show us and everything like that. But oh man, they get to the taxes, and Jamie Lee is just, she is phenomenal in this film. I'd have to look, but it's such a character kind of very over the top performance, but I enjoyed every second of it. And they go there because they are trying to this was where it definitely echoed life of learning business, everything like that. But they're are discussing with their accountant of like what they can and can't write off. And like the impetus of this whole journey, this whole movie starts because Evelyn wants to write off this karaoke machine, and she's not having it. And from there, it's kind of where the adventure starts. But yeah, that's one of the first things you mentioned to me about this movie was Jamie Lee.
Yeah, it was so surprising. I probably saw her in the trailer like the first time, but because I didn't rewatch it, I totally surprised when it was her, and she just looks like such a character I'd never seen her play before in anything. Yeah, with just like the haircut and the yellow
Hmm.
turtleneck, she's just like this perfect fuck, what is it, IRS? I think it is the
Something
IRS.
like that.
Yeah, she's like an
IRA,
auditor,
IRS.
and then she's
Yeah,
got all of her trophies that just look like butt plugs. Auditor of the month, and
yeah.
she's just like so fits that role, and it was so enjoyable. Like she did such a good job at playing this character, in all versions of the
Hmm.
character, like the basically the Terminator one, the IRS agent, and then Evelyn's lover in the hot
In the
dog
hot dog world, yeah.
finger world. She was, yeah, no, she was so fun, and I think it easily could have just been like anyone fit into this role of playing the IRS agent, but the fact that they had Jamie Lee play all these different versions of that same character, it just
Hmm.
showed like her range of an actress, and what she can do with those roles, and she was so great. I loved her, and even when she's bonding with Evelyn at the end, like at the laundromat, they're like sharing like her like e-cigarette thing,
Yeah.
they're vaping, and it's just, I don't know. It was just a really likable character that when you first are introduced to it, it's just like, oh, this is like basically Roz from the Monsters Inc., right?
100%. Yeah, and that's what I like with all the characters because, like, I was even talking about with Evelyn, you're introduced as a character who's like, it's all the characters are shades of gray. It's not black or white because
Mm-hmm.
Evelyn at the beginning to me does things where it's like, I'm not really rooting for you. It seems like you're kind of being hard with or on your family. When you meet Jamie Lee, same thing. It's like you are just the asshole who wants to, take people down or doesn't care. But even in that moment when they've made all these mistakes, she's like, I'll give you one more chance at 6. Like you said at the end, all the stuff happened like because what happened was so all these well actually I guess no the punch didn't happen but still they had an argument. She circles it and people, well actually I'm not gonna say people don't know because if you're listening to the review and you haven't watched the movie, shame on you. But later on that universe when she has like the marker and that's like one of the symbols is like the marker circle around their head. But it's great stuff. So you jump to the end when she goes in there and says like you're supposed to be there for 6 and that she's going to close down this laundromat. And Evelyn, and we'll get to why she does this, she goes nuts in the real world, no multiverse stuff. In her current universe she's living in, she takes a baseball bat, she's breaking down her laundromat, she's yelling at people, she signs divorce papers, she's just having like a badass motherfucker moment, and she's just accepting her new life. And then when she learns about, her husband just asked her for a divorce, she lets her kind of go scot free, and she understands the situation. And we'll get to the husband also explaining it to her. But that moment on the bench really, to me, is one of the bigger moments of the film because between her and between the dad, because the dad, as I referred to, there's that moment when at the beginning of the film they say, oh, yeah, it's just a friend. They replay that. And when it's like, oh, it's actually a girlfriend, he's actually accepting of it, or at
Yeah.
least not as hard. Like he didn't shame them, he didn't get mad and stuff like that. And that's where it's also, I think that's a big thing with Evelyn's characters, don't assume the worst in people. She even does that with her husband, even though she knows him, she's always assuming the worst or thinking the worst of a person. And that's where with
Yeah.
her, I loved that moment where Jamie Lee, yeah, she's like, yeah, I get it. I've been there. My husband served me these papers. And I can't remember she described the moment. It was like a really like not great moment for her to get served papers or something like that. And yeah, they have this bonding moment. And that's the one of the like themes of the movie that I love is just it's what the husband talked about and near the end too is how he fights with love. Right at the beginning of the film they portray that as a weakness, that he's always nice, he might be a pushover but he's always nice and he's talking to people and trying to concede with them or trying to find a middle ground. She looks at it as a weakness of like, oh, he can't stand up for himself, he can't do anything for his family. But he points out like, no, why, that's my way of fighting. And that's where it's like each character, and same thing with Joy, it's just like she's doing the angsty teen thing, right? But there's just other moments where she's explaining about not feeling like she's getting the support she needs, or it's always about the family, stuff like that. Like each character could have gone the way of just, oh yeah, we get why they're upset, but they give them so many layers. Again, just
Yeah.
from the dad to the main character, everyone.
Yeah, that's what makes the whole crew really likable. I like that shout out that you did with the grandfather. I think his name was Gong Gong, in the
Hmm.
movie, and just having him like have a different reaction than maybe you would expect from like a stereotypical like old man like that that's just grown up in the like old times, who he was already disapproving of Evelyn just going to the States and
Yeah, with
going
this guy.
with
Yeah.
this guy, and just like he never really accepted her paths in life. So like from Evelyn's perspective, it's like, hey, I went through this, I know he's not going to be okay with this, but then when they do share, he's changing. It just shows like they don't have to have that in there, but it just makes all these characters a lot more likable. And yeah, no, I like all that stuff. Who was I going to talk about? I don't know. I don't even know. I was going to bring someone else up, but I guess we already talked about the dad, Wayman. Oh
Well,
yeah, that's what I was gonna
yeah.
mention. Were you gonna?
No,
What were
you
you
go
gonna say?
ahead. Yeah, because it might be about something you're going to mention.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna talk about the whole divorce thing.
Hmm.
Like the situation where he was saying like a friend of his, like they got divorced, and when he actually like shows the papers to her for the first time, and they have that like really intense like pers personal relationship, like just talk about that
Hmm.
situation. And before that, it was even like hinted at where maybe the dad was like seeing another couple that was actually like kissing and like having
Yeah.
like
He
affection towards each other. Like you're just getting a glimpse of like what he's struggling on, even though on the surface he's just this happy-go-lucky guy.
he's like yearning for connection pretty
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
And then like even by I think this is the way it went. Maybe I'm just putting in my own taste on it, but I'm pretty sure when he's talking about his I think it was just a friend of his that got the divorce with his wife, or at least presented the divorce papers. It was almost like a tactic to like be like, hey, like I am so. It's like an ultimatum thing. Like I'm giving you the divorce papers. Like let's fix this. This is obviously like a very visual way to represent my issues, where I want to go
Hmm.
to the extent of having a divorce. But it's almost just like it started this conversation where they can start repairing the relationship, and then by the end, obviously they don't get a divorce. I that's the way I took it, at least. Like
Yeah, I
he had
think
heard
so.
he had heard his friend do that for that reason, so then he introduced it in that sense. But you don't really find that out right away. You just find these divorce papers, and it's just like, oh, what's gonna
Hmm.
happen here?
And
I love the way
there's
that
a
was tackled.
good gag too, because with Wayman they use him as the first multiverse person, right? So he comes in, he like
Yeah.
switches bodies, and a great scene where he like they're in the elevator, they're going to see Jamie Lee, and he like puts the umbrella up, and so he covers the cameras, and he's just going wild, and she just doesn't really understand, because at this point it's like every movie, right, where you introduce something weird or crazy into a normal world, the main character has no idea and stuff like that, and he's explaining that, I'm trying to find the right Evelyn. One Evelyn's the key to fix all this and stop doom coming, and again she's just kind of writing it off, but he gets his paper, he writes it, and that was one of my favorite gags, where later on, when Wayman switches back and forth between, I can't remember the place that was like the home base.
Alphaverse.
Alphaverse, yeah, thank you. Alphaverse Wayman and Wayman, they're switching back and forth, and they're leaving the IRS or whatnot account spot, and she drops the paper, and the gag I love is, so the back of the divorce paper has all like the instructions of like change your shoes and put them on opposite, say these things, like it tells you how to skip multiverse, right? But then the front is obviously the divorce paper, so she drops them, and she was acting very weird in the accountant thing, and he chalks it up to, oh, she found out the divorce and that's why, and then she's obviously learning about this multiverse stuff, so that's why, and he holds up this paper, and like she's seeing the back of it, he's seeing the front, like, oh, you saw this. She's like, oh yeah, like are you seeing this too? Like they're both like, when that gag gets pulled off well, it's great. They're both confused or talking about one other thing, and then eventually she does see that, and it just starts to implode more. And the multiverse concept, I guess, too, like we've talked about, but not really. The so the idea of you have to do these strange things to jump universes, it was fascinating, because at first it was like, it was cool, like, okay, you have the Steven Elfverse, they are literally wiring like a video game or like cheat codes to find it out, and people know this, I've talked about it, so I won't repeat it too much, but pretty much they explain, okay, it's me and Kirklin doing this podcast, and then when we end, Kirklin could go outside, he could go to the bathroom, he could go to the kitchen, and there's like all these branches. It's like you've played any sort of choose your own adventure game, right? In something like we've talked about before, like Detroit Become Human or stuff like that, or RPG, where it's like you have all these choices, but this is the one of life, right? So there's so many, and they cover like, oh, you could be all these different type of Evelyns and stuff like that. And for me, because they do that, but they also play to the character strengths, because Wayman explains the reason you could be the one is because you've had all these aspirations, you've had all these dreams, and you've achieved none of them. You've done nothing with your life. So that might mean, though, you're not strong in one skill, but you're capable of learning many. And when they start to break that down to your one, you can see how crushed she is. Of like pretty much just saying, like, you are. We get that in so many what if or multiverse movies where I get that. I imagine when we get to Doctor Strange, it'll be like, oh, our prime Doctor Strange, you are the strongest, so you can fix this. This is the exact opposite of that trope you've seen so many times where they go look for the chosen one. She is like the anti-chosen one. She's the worst. She's like almost their last resort, but because of that, you could find a way. But him laying that down of, you're could be the worst, Evelyn. You've done nothing. This is almost like the worst timeline for you, but you could fix things. Michelle Yeoh just plays that perfectly because she just looks offended, but also just so disheartened in that moment because we'll learn later of all the stuff that you could, achieve. But that's something I've talked about before on many reviews or After Nine and stuff, that the ideas of what if, and that's where I had to get away from them because especially in early life and dating life, what ifs are the biggest thing that'll fuck you up 100%. Playing the what if game, because I do, like, obviously I don't know if there's a multiverse out there, but I loved them showing that graph of, okay, here's her going to the office, and then after that there's like 12, 13 different possibilities of how her life would go in just 1 second. And it's the same thing. I always say this. If I didn't apply at Best Buy, I'd never probably have met Emily and I wouldn't have these 3 kids. And it's just as simple as that, right? Or just the guy who accepted my resume. If he doesn't accept my resume, where I am, even talking with Kirklin, might not, like, even then, how I got from Best Buy to Target, I met you guys. If we don't work at Target, this thing may even never exist. We never may be doing a podcast as a small business. So and that's where now I've definitely like shelved that in my life. But early on, that was always a big thing of just, especially like I said with dating, it's just like the what if game it's an endless amount of, man, it's crazy. But to me, they were taking that idea of all of us have thought about what ifs in our life, but actually putting that towards the plot, because we all know the concept like the multiverse, but them showing that graph and just the little, throwing a pebble effect, what it could do. I thought that was great. And having the on top of having to do this weird shit that got weirder and weirder of just like, when the action scene started and he started to chew a piece of gum, I'm like, okay, so I guess gum is like whatever he had, or no, it was the lip balm,
Yeah,
right?
lip
At first,
balm.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I was like, okay, maybe this is something scientific special. So I was like, okay, whatever product he has, they're going to chew this thing, and that's what makes it into space. And then he picked the gum. I was like, this is weird. And then, oh man, the paper cuts, fucking Christ,
Oh yeah.
fucking Christ. But that's where it was just, they don't explain, and obviously I explained everything right in this moment, but they kind of delay that throughout the movie, and it's in such a done pacing way. So from a real life perspective of the what if and how much our choices matter, I loved that, and I thought they nailed that with even just character motivations about Evelyn, like choosing her family, and she felt maybe she didn't choose enough for herself, and then the actual wacky science fiction side of it was tremendous. And even Alphaverse, like we talked about, they're just in some trailer, and yeah, it's not the biggest budget, but the filmmakers, cinematographers, everybody, pacing, editing wise, they make it feel big, and that's what's great. So I loved everything about the concept of the multiverse and how we traveled there from a story character perspective and from just the actual sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, no, 100%. I completely agree with you just in regards to like the what if moments. And I don't know if they did this on purpose, but it seemed like they kept the multiverse rules very similar to the one from the MCU. So it was like really easy to digest, at least, of just like, hey, you do this, and then this branch will veer off in this
The
direction.
Russos
So
did
it's like,
produce it,
oh yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't actually, no, I did see that in the credits. So yeah, that
I
does
didn't
make
know
sense.
that. I forgot about it because I think Evolution Pictures is like someone they're tied to, or a company that
Okay.
I won't say own or something like that. But I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even know the Russos produced this. Cool,
Yeah. So maybe like for that reason, it was just a little bit easier to follow like the multiverse. It's like, okay, they like she goes into this one to get this skill, and I understand why that's that. So I'm glad they had that. And then I think with just introducing these different rules of these triggers that like take you to the specific multiverse. Like it wasn't explained all at once. They showed like the chapstick thing, and
It
then
was show don't tell at first, which was great. 'Cause
Yeah,
you
yeah,
do. By
exactly.
the time he explained, I'm like, okay, I figured this out. But still, that rush of just this weird stuff happening, and then powers coming, you're like, what the fuck is going on right now? This is wild.
I know. Yeah, at first I'm like, is he just mind fucking them? It's like this guy's just eating chapstick, and I was gonna kick our ass with his fanny pack. Like, what's gonna happen here? But yeah, the paper cuts thing, and then I love when
Oh.
she is like, she's got the earbuds in, and then he's like, like you have to confess your love to to the Jamie Lee in that
Mhm.
situation, and then like they're explaining like there's a couple other outs, but like you probably don't want to do it. One is break your own arm, like do these things.
Yeah.
The switching of the shoes is very easy when it comes to those other options, I guess. But yeah, it was just really fun. Really fun spin on how they trigger this multiverse travel thing. And yeah, like it was just shown at its own pace, and I think that helped a lot with I had no one next to me to ask if they were following it, but for myself, um, yeah, it worked for me.
This is something that, man, like, not that A24 will sell it and do this, but I fucking want a video game so bad. Because just that idea of, okay, there is like, let's say 100 Kirkland Panthers and they all have their own specific skill, and you can pull from that universe their skill in your universe. That's so fucking cool. That's such a cool, because usually we see it like, even if we get with Strange, it's usually like, okay, you're gonna mix multiverses, but like, like look at Toby in No Way Home. He comes your multiverse, but it's not like Tom or Andrew get like the web from the hand. It's just, oh, that's what he has. But that the fact that you could, as Tom Holland's super, be like, okay, I'm gonna somehow pull his power into here. It was so cool, because also at this point they start to show some of the personalities, and at the end, I cannot wait to get this because I had to pause it. They show, I don't know, 50 plus when they do that, like probably near the last 10 minutes, when it's that quick frame of like they show
Oh
so
yeah,
many. I'm like, and I was bummed. I get probably from a budget point of view, it's like, oh, I really wanted to see that animated one too, because that was really cool. But
yeah.
that just shows like, okay, how much could you pull from? But that's what was great. They show us all at the end. When you're in the middle of it, you just think, man, she's learning, so it's not, the possibilities are endless, but because she's still learning, they're not endless, right? So she doesn't know how to access them all. But as us, the viewer, for me, it was such a fun ride to be like, man, anything could happen right now. Like when they like shot like the smoke tear gas, and she tapped into the singer just to get like the bigger lungs to hold her voice. I was like, fuck, this is like, it's so fun. Like it's fun, it's clever, it's badass. Because all the moments, like in the moment when what's his name again, Wayman, when he taps into like his like kung fu mixed martial arts like fighter, it's a great mix of there, that is a very comedic scene, but there's still drama in it. Especially I feel even later on when she taps into it too. There's always like sprinkles of all this stuff, and we've talked about it before. To me, that's the hardest thing, is to do like comedy and drama at the same time, because one of those sides could really not work. Either the drama doesn't feel like the stakes are there, or the comedy's overshadowing it. And in these fight scenes, yeah, they tap into it and they get some really fun, wild stuff going on, but then there's serious stakes. And oh man, just the brutality of that moment where he gets his fanny pack and puts like the fish aquarium rocks in there. He starts going to town in the moment.
Oh
You're like,
yeah,
you're cringing, and the way the aspect ratio like change, and they
so
always
great.
time that so good as far as like a look or something, and it just, you felt like you're in a kung fu movie. It just, all that stuff it's so well done.
Yeah, no, 100%. I wanted to comment too on just like the visual aspect of when they show. Do you remember what Joy's like name was as like the other being that was the main
Oh,
villain?
it
It was
was
like
like
Jobu.
Tabaka, yeah, Jobu Tabaka or something like that. I think Jobu
Okay.
was right though for one, but she's
Yeah.
like, yeah, the end game villain. She's the all
Yeah.
powerful. She's
She's
accessed every multiverse at the same time.
Yeah, and like and I think when they first show her like interact with Evelyn when she appears in like that hallway, and she's just like
Oh,
glitching out basically, like she's just
oh,
going
yeah.
so just visually it was so great to see like her fingernails like change colors and just
Yeah.
constantly. And I think the way that they explained like how sensory overload that could actually be. I think they did a good job at showing that, at least when Evelyn is kind of like experiencing that.
Hmm.
Because like I'm in the theater, it's like fucking 12 o'clock midnight. It's just me and these two other couple. The husband's like passed out, and I'm just like, fuck. I feel like I'm in Clockwork Orange or something. And it's just like flashing constantly.
Oh yeah.
It's like a psychedelic experience, and then it just goes to show like what that could actually be like, like like
Hmm.
actually experiencing all those
Everything all at
moments all at
once.
once.
Yeah.
Yeah, is really really crazy and trippy. And but yeah, all the multiverse stuff when they're pulling like we haven't even talked about like the specific ones really, but like just the specific things that they would take from those specific multiverses, that was so well done. It was so great. Like like on the surface level, or like on written paper, it's like, okay, what are they going to gain from a universe about finger hot dog fingers, right? And we
Yes.
just kept going back there, and it actually showed like this really disturbing yet like heartwarming relationship between Evelyn and Jamie Lee's character.
What
But
I want to
fuck.
know is why, like, I get the hot dog fingers, but then why does like mustard and ketchup also come out of these fingers as like a sexual? I was,
Ejaculate.
yeah, and I was like, fuck, that is a disgusting timeline. But like you
Oh yeah.
said, the way they tie it together is at the end fight. She's like, well, a world where we have hot dog fingers, we learned how to use our feet, and she starts fucking everybody out with her feet, and you're like, oh my god, like this is brilliant. I'm watching cinema right now, like it's not like you could easily just have done that as a joke, and that's what it was used for most times, right? I feel at the beginning of like the romantic scenes, and then I feel like it was used obviously for Jamie Lee's career to say like, okay, in one multiverse there's love there and there's like a connection, and they're almost pulling that too, where for somewhere, even if they dislike each other in the moment, there's something where they could find some kinship with one another, right? But again, it pays off. The whole movie, it's pretty much used as a comedic beat, and just like to me, that was the first weirdest thing. That yeah, the time travel stuff, like the chewing the gum, the paper cuts, it's weird, but it's like okay, these are rules. But that was the first okay, what the fuck am I watching right now? Like hot dog fingers. But again, the fact that they pay that off in the finale of no, it becomes a useful tool, and that's why she tapped into it, it's like man, just bravo. It's so smart. It's so well done.
I was just thinking of the Flash and Zack Snyder's Justice League with his own hot dog.
Oh god, yeah. This is Zack Snyder saw it coming. He's like, he had the idea, but Warner Brothers like, no, you can't do it. I got to mention this before I forget. The other thing with the paper cuts is I really like they did one cut where he, in the final cut, he cut it and then the blood went on the camera. Really cool because you wouldn't think that's coming from a paper cut, but just like fun stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I was already cringing at just the thought
Oh,
of,
oh
and like every finger too. You
yeah.
know, like ugh.
Multiple times he's going to town on it.
I feel like he
Yeah.
wasn't cutting it at one point, so he had to just like keep going.
Yeah.
Like,
Let's take an ad break. Let's recover from the paper cut, and then we'll keep diving into everything and everywhere. And we're back. Where do you want to go now, sir?
maybe talk about like the action sequences. I thought like the fighting choreography was really great. It wasn't too over the top with like Kill Bill style of just like
Mm-hmm.
so much extra things going on, but I think they just absolutely nailed like the kung fu vibes. Like you mentioned the aspect ratio when Joy and Evelyn are like fighting with the swords, and I mean it's basically like at the end of Kill Bill when she's fighting Lucy Liu's character, and it's just like snowing outdoors. But I like just specifically with what's his name?
Wayman. Yeah, the
Waymond
first time we get it. Yeah.
with the fanny pack. I think that's where I had that moment where I'm like, man, this is gonna be such a rewatchable movie for me for just
Mm-hmm.
like the enjoyment of the action sequences, and they're just like just very fun to follow. Yeah, no, I thought all that stuff was good, and then later on when we have her kicking ass with the googly eye on her forehead, it's just all great stuff.
Oh yeah, and that's where, like I was saying earlier, that there's some wild stuff. But the Wayman scene, I was enjoying the movie already up in that point, but that's where that was like to me the buckle up moment. Like, okay, we're really switching gears here of what this movie's gonna be, because I knew like I'd heard about the kung fu stuff, but it was just so different than what I was expecting. And when you get a scene later on, again when I talk about the sprinkling of the comedy, when she's fighting like a bunch of uh, like what would we say her the villain's name was again? Jobu or
Jobu,
Jobu. I'll
I'll
just
look it
call it.
up.
Yeah, look it up because I don't want to screw it up. But she has these minions, right? That she pulls from other multiverses and uses them and stuff. One of the final fight scenes where, oh my god, where the guys to access some powers have to sit on the trophies, which is pretty much, yeah, I could tell my audience of who I was in because myself and a few others chuckled when she showed the awards because we knew all those butt plugs, and then some people did not. So it's like, okay, either you don't find that funny or you might not know what that signifies. But when they are literally fighting to like, this is where I could not believe I had that moment the same time on in No Way Home when I saw the three Peters running together. I was like, wow, look at this film. That's the moment I had when we have an action scene where she is trying to stop these two gentlemen from sitting on this butt plug trophy to access powers to make them stronger. And then when we skip to the point of them having that and a different like trophy up their butts, and they're fighting, their genitals are blurred out, and they're fighting with butt plugs in just sticking out. And the scene later on where she gets them both down, like pulls them out, I was just like, "Ooh, holy shit!" Like this, and that's where it's great. I think that they leave it for the third act because like the third act is where it gets like the weirdest with the bagel and everything like that. But again, it's in this moments where it is crazy. It is just really weird and wacky. But there's all these stakes going on. It's like, yeah, she has to stop these guys before it gets worse. And but like I said, that image of when you saw him and blurred out and the butt plug was, I couldn't believe it. It was like, oh my god, I cannot wait till more people see this and just talk about like that because everyone's gonna know what that scene is. And
Yeah.
it's just that's a scene that's gonna be burned in my mind for years, probably till the day I die. Like I'll remember the exact moment I watched that fight scene.
And it's so crazy too because you could take like that clip from this movie and then like the clip of the husband and the wife having the conversation about the divorce and then like the moment at like the karaoke, and it's just so different all from the same
Yeah.
like movie though, like and then you have the sausage fingers like that, if you just showed those list of clips like to a random stranger, like they would definitely think those are all completely different movies. Like they just have such a
Absolutely.
different vibe. And I think just the fact that this is all in one movie, it just makes it so enjoyable because it's such a ride. It's such a wild ride.
Mhm.
Like I'm experiencing this movie, and I was just like fully engaged. So it was Jobu Tupaki. That was
Jobu Tupaki. Yeah, and that
yeah.
you talked about that earlier. Again, it doesn't make sense because they show her, like we said, she can access all the multiverse powers at the same once. She can switch between them. The intro of her was frightening, but the thing is, like, she's switching costumes, outfits, but they're all like they're not scary, like they're not grotesque. They're not like a
Yeah.
Freddy Krueger movie. Like it's not that where it's like, oh shit, she becomes this really scary beast. It's just her in different outfits, but it's the way the actress like protrudes. This character feels like they just want death and they could cause death at any moment. We do learn more about her later on, but when you're introduced, she just feels like such a unstoppable force.
It's like an Agent Smith. Like
100%.
that's what it feels like.
Yeah, but worse because it's this kind-looking little girl or like younger girl, and you don't think anything could happen. But it was very cool. Everything they did with her, like I said, the switching of the costumes all the time, her just hunting down Evelyns in different multiverses and stuff like that. It was very cool, easy like concept, and I loved though the idea because I wasn't sure when we introduced that concept. Like, okay, has Joy been this way the whole time, and she's just like, playing it off that she's like a good daughter, stuff like that. But no, it's that this thing has kind of possessed Joy's body in each multiverse. But really, it's still like they say that, but I feel like it's almost still at the end it's still her daughter. Like I feel like that's what Jobu's kind of putting out there. But as we've seen, it's like no, that's still to your core you because in that one multiverse, our main one, she's there and the conversation they do have doesn't resort in a fight. It's like a personal conversation, right? And that to me is just that's what I loved the most about the film was it was a combo of her talking with her daughter and then thinking about her husband. That's the first time I cried in this film when she looked at her husband and she was having all the flashbacks of him just in her life doing normal things, putting the googly eyes up, and her just feeling like how much she took advantage or didn't take advantage of that and kind of put it to the side. And there's things, this is like a personal story as well, but there's a great moment where we haven't referred to really, but where she pulls the fighting style from is she's pretty much playing Michelle. Yeah, like it's her as an actress. They even show an image of her at the Crazy Witch Asians like red carpet. So it's like this fun thing of okay, she wanted to be an actress. She didn't go with Wayman. She goes to be an actress, but she starts to do these action movies, so she learns how to fight. But she later on bumps into Wayman, and this is just one of the most like touching, great scenes. It's gonna tie into Jobu as well, but she bumps into him, right? And he has a suit. He looks very well off. He looks like we see him in our world. He has like a very, like, he hasn't got a haircut in a little bit, He looks like he just has like a collared shirt. Like he's just a guy. He's like a normal guy who's just really nice for a normal guy. But this guy, slick back hair, well groomed, very nice suit. He's at a movie premiere. So no matter what he's doing, you can tell if he's not an actor or producer, he has lots of money just to be at a movie premiere. And this is like, she's supposed to be like a top actress in this world, like a big well-known star. And they talk about this, and her in this universe tries to like put the moves on him, and he kind of almost doesn't want that because it feels like he kind of missed their opportunity. Like it's almost like a pity, like, yeah, we should have been doing this in the past. And she's like, well, if we would have done this, it would have just our life. I've seen our lives and it wouldn't have been great and it wouldn't have been special. It would have just been taxes on a laundromat. And she says that, and then later on they cut back to that scene. He's saying, I'd give all this up just to do taxes and be in a bad laundromat with you. And that's where, again, that's where this film hit me personally, because when I was younger and doing like the film stuff and everything, I had so much of like, you got to do this. You got to, it's funny, you mentioned the Ultimatum on Netflix. It's like the same thing people talk about. Like, you got to have this certain landmark before you have kids. You got to have this certain money. You got to before you have kids. And when I was younger, that was me of like, oh no, I got to be doing by 30, I got to be doing this. By 25, I got to be doing this. And I was so obsessed with that type of stuff too, of like, oh man, if I don't make a film by this age, I'm going to be a failure. And luckily, I didn't take a multiverse or me to hit my 60s to realize that. It's definitely having kids, but it's that moment of enjoying. We talk about American Beauty, and that's why I love this film, because the ending of this film is enjoying the little things, but just in life, where it's just Joy talks about like, hey, none of Joy, or I guess Jobu talks about none of this matters, right? We're all gonna die. It's all gonna go away. But eventually, Evelyn has the realization of like, yeah, it is all gonna go away, and we all are gonna die, just like you and me. But enjoy what you have while you have it in the moment, because it's just you. It could be gone the next day, and the thing is, yeah, not everything matters, but it does matter in the moment to you because it's your life and what you love. You know, there's a good quote, and this is another thing that helped me when I was younger. A good quote by Conan O'Brien was, I think I've told you the story before, where he's in an interview and he's like, do you know, the interviewer, he's like, how many kids know who Clark Gable is? And the interviewer's, oh, probably not many. And he's like, yeah, Clark Gable at one point was the biggest star in Hollywood. Everyone knew him. Jump a couple decades later, no one knows who the fuck he is. Doesn't really matter what level of money or fame or what you achieve. It's like what you do with your life while you have it. And that's what I loved about this moment, like her telling that to Joy, of like, Joy is like, you could be anywhere. You could be an actress, you could be a fighter, you could have all these multiverses. Why would you pick this one to stay and help me? And she's like, this is the one I want to be in the most. And she has those flashbacks with the husband, and like she's finally, before the googly eyes was looked at as an annoyance, now is like a thing she loves. And like that ultimate moment of putting the googly eye on her forehead, this thing that she had talked about hating and like being so annoyed the whole movie, that's the ultimate symbol of, you know, these things in life, they might seem little, but they're everything. Especially, I guess, talk about this all the time with Gwen, like going to kindergarten. Like, it's already gone by so fast. Like, it's been a
Yeah.
blink of an eye that, you know, I was a father of one, and now she's like, in a year gonna be going to school and interacting with little shit kids that I'm scared to like not want her to interact with. And the movie just really hitting home of, you know, just taking it in. Doesn't matter what you're doing. The fact that you're alive, and if you have people you love, just enjoy that while you can.
Yeah.
And that's what you see her at the end when you talked about her kissing her husband. She seemed so happy, opposed to the first time she went to that counter. She
Mm-hmm.
was so down and out, so gloom.
Yeah.
At the end, she's just like, she wraps her arm around him, she's giving him much PDA. Everything with that, with Jobu tying in the multiverse stuff, it was phenomenal. And that's where it's like, okay, this film's like an all-timer special for me. It's all
Yeah.
great, but the ending really hits home.
Yeah, phenomenal character growth from our protagonist. She just killed it with the role.
Oh yeah.
But I love too, because there's so much emphasis on like her own thoughts on her life situation, like early on in the film. Like
Mhm.
she never, like, she just sees her husband as just like a coworker, basically. Like she just needs him
100%.
to like keep the business afloat. Like she just has her daughter as like, yeah, at the back of her mind, she loves her, but she doesn't really think about it. It's just like, oh, that's just my joy, you know. And then she's always just so caught up in like, okay, I'm struggling with these taxing things. I have to impress my father. And then in the
Mhm.
back of her mind, she always thinks about like what would have happened if she didn't go with Wayman. And then, yeah, like it took to basically be everywhere, everything all at once to have that realization that it's all about the little things. That's basically what this whole movie's about, is just like really appreciating just every single small moment in your
Yeah.
life. And that was surreal. I was not expecting that. I figured it was gonna be pretty touching, just with the way that it started, like seeing this struggling family just, you know, not being super close, and just trying to keep their business afloat. But then by the end, just the wild ride that we got on. We got some kung fu and some hot dog fingers in between, but by the end, just, yeah, it left me pretty shook, which is how emotionally invested I think I got, because it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, and I feel like too that this is why I'm excited to watch it again. It's much more like a morbid point of view, because where I feel like Jobu, like, yeah, okay, she's this like huge dimension multiverse person, but to me, I still feel like it's just the daughter, because they even say that it is the daughter, where in one multiverse she just tested her too hard, right, and that like she pushed her Joy like too
That
hard to
was the
keep.
Alphaverse.
Yeah, the
Like that
Alphaverse.
was yeah.
Yeah, and that made her be able to have this capability. So Jobu, whatever name they've given her, is still her daughter, and that's where I feel like, especially with the daughter being gay, and she's having all these struggles. To me, the bagel thing was funny as far as like, okay, she wants to put everything on bagel, see what would happen, and the whole like twist of it is everyone thinks she's going to use bagel to like destroy the multiverses and stuff like that. Really, no, it's just destroy her. But it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of an allegory for someone I feel like considering suicide. You know, of the thought
Yeah.
of, especially when she's talking about nothing matters in the end, we're all going to die. Those are people that, you know, when they get that low, can have that thought of, oh, that's why I will do it. And as we always say, don't do that. Get help. There's people that care about you. There's tons of ways, numbers, phone calls, things like that, to get help. And that's the best type of films or cinema, where it's like you're using this sci-fi, you know, weird, funny thing of like this donut that's gonna suck up this
It's
multiverse
a black
villain.
hole,
Yeah, it's a
essentially.
black
Like,
hole. Yeah,
yeah.
but really, it's about this character saying they can't find any meaning in life and they're just gonna kill themselves. And then
Mm-hmm.
the mother Evelyn, who you could look upon at the beginning of this film, has that, not that she's gonna kill herself, but she feels like a failure. She feels like there is no big
Yeah.
meaning in life. She's like dropped out, but she talks about, and they show all the different multiverses now of her going and finding, like in the hot dog fingers of her, like listening to Jamie Lee and trying to understand her struggles. When they're rocks of like falling down as a rock too, to go after her daughter, like making these sacrifices. And that's what was great, just explaining like, no, there's people here that love you and I love you. And even that point where she at first tells her, you know, you can go if you want, like if you need to leave you can, but she's realizing it's almost like what her father does. So she doesn't make her stay and say you have to stay, but it's this thing of, you can go, but I'm gonna love you and always need you here. Where the father sending her away felt like it was sending her away. You know,
Yeah.
that's the difference. Where with Evelyn, she was sent away. With Joy, Evelyn's telling her you could go if you want, but the choice is yours. Like, I'm not pushing you away. And that's where all that stuff was great. And it just hit home. And that's where I can't wait to watch this. I can't wait for other people to watch this. And like I said, that's the good stuff. When you get those movies that end or are about that grand scheme of life, like we talked about American Beauty a few weeks ago, that's where it does put a bit more perspective, like, or it just reminds you, because I had that perspective. That's always good. Like, yeah, you know, it just, that's where it's like, oh, I was a little more nicer to people at work the next day. You know, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, just because like it is, this is your life, and there's so much stuff, and just be happy like the things we got and everything like that. You know, and beautiful film that
Absolutely.
way.
No, absolutely. The allegory with like the suicidal thoughts and just like having that symbolize as this black hole that just engulf everything, which like that's basically death, right? Like
Yeah.
once that you meet that, that's the end of everything. It's sucks everything up eventually. But I think you could have had this movie like not try to mask that, like actually have it like be a suicide, but just
Hmm.
the fact that they cover it in such a clever way but still have like a pretty clear allegory, it's just really smart. And just it's not like hitting you over the head of being like,
Yeah.
oh, this character's feeling this way, but like it's masked through this crazy sci-fi threat that just makes it so well done. And
The room they're in with the costumes and that outfit she has, like that jester costume with her hair done, and
oh yeah,
her hair is the donut as well, and
yeah,
stuff like that. You know,
the
and that's where
bagel.
it's, yeah, and that's where it's great. Oh yes, or the bagel, and that's where it's great too. She's trying to get almost her mom to do it too, in a way, and that's where with Evelyn, like, you know, approaching death, kind of figures out like, no, there are different ways. But again, I feel like that was kind of hinting at that maybe at times Evelyn did have that thought of maybe not suicide but close to, or something like that, because
Yeah.
things like that can run in a family, right? And that's where, again, up into that allegory and the ending point, the movie is like still great at that point. Like, I was still probably at like a Myers boys, like a 10 out of 10 already. Like, this film's fantastic. But when you get
Mm-hmm.
that like last act, but last like 15, 20 minutes, that's just like, holy shit, you know. It's just like, this just
Absolutely.
takes that, like, that it evolves to that next step of, man, this is just so good, you know. It's just, it's undescribable. It's that type of film where you gotta go, no, you gotta just see it. I can't tell you how good it is, you know.
100%. One thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about Jobu, and same thing kind of goes with Evelyn when they're all just going like the overloaded mode and just, I mean, Jobu is like that basically the whole movie of just
Mm-hmm.
constantly being everywhere all at once, where it's like impossible for her to actually live in the moment. And like I can only imagine someone that might be having like suicidal thoughts like that, like can't just focus on the little things and like enjoy
Mm-hmm.
it and then just stay present there. So I just liked how that related to that character, how like their brain is just so broken to the fact where like they
Yes.
cannot, like it's literally impossible for her, and like we're showing it visually when she's just twitching out constantly. Her fingernails are changing, her body's changing, she keeps changing to these different multiverse versions of Joy.
Hmm.
But I love the way that was done. That was so phenomenal. And then when you get to Evelyn kind of have like almost understanding like Jobu's point of view of like nothing really matters because she's literally just everywhere, everything all at once. Like she just,
Yeah. Why
it
doesn't matter?
doesn't
'Cause if you
matter.
die,
Yeah.
you just go to another multiverse,
Yeah,
stuff like
no,
that.
exactly. Like I'm having
Yeah.
this conversation with you, but I'm not going to be here in 2 seconds. So why does it matter that I'm talking?
Yeah.
Like I can be a total prick to you, like that doesn't matter. But it's all about the little things. Like if every little thing is thought of that way, and I mean Wayman, like on the surface level, he just like exudes that energy.
Yeah, he's figured it out before them as like he has that idea like we talked about at the beginning how I fight is this is how I fight as being nice.
Yeah.
You always thought I was in the background not doing anything. No, this is my method of it. And I was like, and that almost changed my perspective thing on it too. Like, fuck, you don't even think about that because you can't look at someone's like, oh, it's a pushover. They don't stand
Yeah.
up for themselves. But then when she again has all the flashbacks of the time he helps by just like being kind or talking to people, it's like, oh shit, yeah, like that's another good message. Be kind to people, don't
Uh,
try to be as kind as you can to a decent person or a regular person. Obviously there's limits, but that's what was great to show with that character.
Oh, absolutely. And even like with his own superpower of being able to use that, like he has his own struggles of
Hmm.
of being unable to like sit down and like voice his feelings to his wife, that like he feels unheard in these
Hmm.
moments. Like he doesn't feel like he's in a relationship, and then when that showed, like he is very vulnerable in that moment. Like he's not invincible because he can just be
Hmm.
Mr. Optimistic.
And that's like
And
no
again,
one
there's
is,
just
right?
more
Yeah.
layers
Yeah.
of the character.
No one is. Whatever your strongest attribute is, everybody has a weakness. What it doesn't matter what it is, and that's where it's like you have to have that person or partner or even yourself to figure it out. But that's where he was kind of almost he had this power in a sense, but he was almost ashamed of it because that's the rest of the family almost felt like they were so kind of loud and they were yelling at each other or be very confrontational with one another. That wasn't him. He was always in the background. He was always just kind of ducking away from it, and that shows that was his weakness, but it eventually worked out. And that is the one thing I wanted to show too. When the first time we see Joy come back, as far as like Joe believes, and then Joy's there, and that one moment where she's taped, and then the father like comes in the multiverse once, like, oh, you got to kill her now and stuff like that. And they do that great cut of like it looks like she's gonna kill her, but she cuts the tape and stuff. But they're just like, no, you gotta if you kill her, that's one less person she could take over. It's good to go. And it's great at that moment because I didn't think she was gonna kill her, but it still is like I don't know what's gonna happen next in the scene because that one was so interesting. I thought, okay, when we jump to the multiverse, we're gonna be there and the choices won't matter. But it's like we're still living with the choices of her punching Jamie Lee this moment because it's
Yeah.
always like they're still living in this world. How are they gonna get out? Now later on, they die and she kind of finds like a save point almost so she can get back to right like another multiverse route. But still in that moment when she kept going back to that world or that reality, it's like, oh, they're like these consequences. It's not like she punched Jamie Lee and they reset right away, which lots of movies do because like we don't want to show those consequences because that's too much to get into. But no, they really do. And obviously that timeline kind of gets branched off because it gets taken out, but it kind of morphs into the other one. And I loved all those moments of leading up, her trying to explain it, things like that. And man, the acting from the father, I guess just Wayman when he was especially scared near the end when he thought Michelle Yeoh was gonna kill him and stuff like that. And it again, great acting by him and all around.
Absolutely. Where do you want to go next?
I'll look, but I think I've hit most of the major. Like all the other stuff I got to shout out is stuff that when we do Golden Geeks and I've seen it again because there's so like each scene is great, but there's so much stuff in there. Like whether it's her like hunting down each universe, whether it is like the fucking Rakunatui or whatever. Like that was one of those things that I like, and it was so interesting because she was describing it to people, and again, how they do it, they do play it off as like a joke where, oh, she has just confused Ratatouille, like because we're the same as the family, we haven't seen that reality yet, so it's like, oh, you're describing Ratatouille, but you've screwed it up, like okay, that's funny, but then we later on see that no, there's a universe where there's a chef with a raccoon on his head. And the chase scene, oh my god, when when she was on his head pulling his hair and they switch, that stuff where it's like on paper, and this is where you got to give a lot of credits to the producers A24, and that's why I love them. But on paper, if you were to get that, you could look at it like, man, if this goes bad, this could fucking kill a movie. Like in the moment, you could be like, this is so stupid. And we've seen this all in so many movies. And again, it didn't kill, but we even have stuff in Sonic where it's just like all this like particular human stuff is not working. This is just bad, and it's not even nowhere near the level of this. So the fact that they pull it off as one, yeah, it's kooky comedy, but then also later on it gets to the emotional point of like, yeah, I get that fucking raccoon, guys. Like that's where all the stuff like there's just each scene, each multiverse has like such a great moment. That's why we'll be excited next year to talk about it again, because I'm excited for Dylan and Taylor and maybe Jessica to see it, but then just to get some also multiple viewings to catch so much stuff I didn't see. But yeah, the raccoon, I couldn't believe it was like the animal beings where it's like, oh, we're doing this right now. I can't believe this, you know?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that moment. I kind of forgot about it honestly until you just brought it up now because there was just so much. There's so much in this movie. But yeah, like when she helps the guy like save her raccoon because he's just getting taken away by animal control. It's like that's just such a random like side quest that I'm on
Yes.
during this
Oh, yeah.
already like wild wacky adventure. um, yeah, that was absolutely phenomenal. I feel like I had something else. I was going through the IMDb and I got totally distracted. It was just I liked all the side characters like at the laundromat like just like regulars
The widower.
that yeah absolutely
My
like
wife used to use that perfume. It's like, oh, fuck.
and just like the regulars that she deals with like on day to day, like that was just fun. You have Big Nose in there. She was just those little side characters. They're fun people to
They fill the
interact with.
world out, you know. It
Yeah.
reminds that remind me lots of Pixar movies where like each side character has like a little nice kind of style to them where you remember like something like recently Turning Red, like all these little friends or side characters where they have something that you remember them for if it's a characteristic and
Yeah.
and it's good. And yeah, that perfume guy, that was, and then later on in the movie when she like shoots the perfume out of her mouth into his like nostrils to like wake him out of, and that was great, like using all the things of to get people back in from, you know. And even then we talk about again the allegory of suicide when she's trying to go into the bagel, the daughter and the whole family's like trying to pull her out of it, you know. It was like again showing like this family is here with you through thick and thin, and then even if you're going into this like dimension black hole or whatnot, we're going to be with you. But all that stuff, like almost the reverse of getting the powers, like snapping them out, really good stuff. That stuff that I hate that I can't specifically remember right now, because each moment again they set you up for, oh, this character has this trait, or like the guy, oh, he misses his wife, so what snaps him out of being crazy, smelling his wife's perfume, and that like fills him with love. And that's why I'll be excited to watch again, because there's so many moments. There's the last act, or maybe second act, and then last third act. It's just there's so much being thrown at you. It's crazy, and it all works, but it's just crazy. Of like I can't recount it all, unfortunately.
No, 100%. I mean, I already just mentioned that I forgot about the Raccoon-a-Tooie moment.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much that was shown. But I really liked how they had it in like chapters too. It'd be like chapter 1, everything, and then everywhere, and then like right at the end was all at once. But man, it's such a funny moment because first of all, when the part 1 everything comes up, it was so fucking loud in my theater. I don't know if that happened with you.
Yeah, they made
I was
sure
like
it
scared.
was
Yeah.
thumbling. Yeah. That's like
I
I'm
was,
about
like,
to have an
scared.
experience right now.
Yeah, no, 100%. But later on, it's when she. I think it's like when she dies.
Yes, I was gonna bring this up,
like
yeah.
it goes and it like rolls credits and okay, I was pretty damn present this entire movie, but for whatever reason around that part, I was like kind of dozing off. I think I was just really tired. It was the end of a long day, you know. It was probably like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night at that point.
Oh no.
And then I'm like dozing off, and then I wake up, and then it's just like, oh, she died, and then credits rolled, and I was like, no fucking way, I just missed like the whole end of the movie, and I have to review this. Like I literally was like panicking, and then I noticed though it's like directed by Evelyn Wang, and then it's like starring Evelyn Wang, and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a I feel like I'm in a multiverse right now. Like I am so tripping out. Like the main character is the director and cast, and then it goes to them in the theater, and I'm like, what the fuck is this movie? This is so insane. Just like that already crazy moment, and then coupled in with me like almost dozing off, and I thought I just missed the entire movie. And then
That's awesome.
there's so much more of the movie too after
Yes.
that. Like it was crazy. This movie was much longer than I thought it was gonna be, but I don't think it felt long. it was just really really trippy, that one fake ending that they had.
Yeah, I love that because also I kind of have a feeling from where I'm like, okay, this isn't the ending, but I love when shit does that. I love when it's just like, okay, what's going on? My experience is like I'm looking around for other people to like, do they buy it's the ending and stuff like that. But
Just get up and leave.
yeah, well, that was a short movie, but no, no, that was absolutely fantastic. Again, just but it's good because one, it would have worked already. It's like a fun, clever way of like, okay, she dies. This is kind of fun to do, like this gag in the middle of the movie. But no, it just goes into the other multiverse. It transitions into it. So there's like a story reason they use it as a way to trick you, but also no, they're doing this movie, and then she walks out of the lobby and bumps into Wayman, right? So it's just oh, chef's kiss. It's so fun. It's so cool. That's
Absolutely.
what an experience for you there. That would have been
Yeah. Yeah, I literally like mini panicked. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go see this movie like tomorrow because I just missed the whole ending. Luckily, you
Oh.
know, from that point on, I was definitely awake and present. Definitely for the end too, for when it just turns into like a silent movie with text on, and they're just stones. And it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
What is this
Again,
movie? Yeah.
just what is this movie? What is this
Yeah.
experience? This so original, so unique. I'm so glad this is a thing, and A24 just keep doing what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty crazy with how many movies they actually release too. I feel like for a while there, it would be like, oh, a new A24 movie's coming out. Okay, I gotta get everything ready for. I don't know what I
Yeah.
was going with that. Just preparing myself
Come
mentally.
on, kids.
Yeah, exactly. Back up the minivan.
Yeah.
But like, there's been so much out that I still haven't seen. Like X,
Yeah, I
I
know. I
still
got to
haven't
see
seen
that
that
too. Yeah.
movie.
Is
Lamb, I
Northman?
haven't seen.
Yeah, Lamb. I still got to see too. Is Northman? I feel like that's A24, right? Because the other Robert Egger movies were.
I
So it must be.
thought so.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, if that is the case, that's like 3 movies in the span of 1 month, pretty much like that, you know. So they're definitely pumping them out because I think they've announced that they have. Let's see. I just watched it. And it looks like it was awesome. Blah blah blah. Is Northman A24 movie? 4 years later, A24 and Eggers released The Lighthouse. Oh, just give me a fucking answer, internet. You know so much, but you don't know what that is. I actually don't think it is because
Let's see.
it would make sense. Oh, there's a Reddit thread.
No, it's not.
So that makes sense because he did them with before with A24, but he had said that he probably will never do a big movie like this again because he's had so many like disputes with the studios of like cutting stuff or like you should keep this or etc.
Robert Eggers.
So
Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, not this, with that, and that would make sense because A24 is a bit more loose and everything like that. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So. Yeah, no, A24, at least the stuff that put out is quality. I'm excited to see X. Yeah, I still got to see Lamb. We got Men coming up in the next few, in this year, which looks interesting. I got a trailer before that, and I love what they're doing. I hope, like I said, they announced they have some sort of backers that gave them a bunch of money so they can keep in business because, like, obviously not all these movies are as profitable as we'd like them to be because they're not like they're hard sells sometimes, but that's why. Definitely got to see these, and yeah, I hope they keep making them. Do you have any specific things to point out, or final thoughts on a rating?
No, I think we covered everything. There was lots to cover.
Yeah,
We
we'll be
definitely
talking
probably
about this
missed.
again too. That's
Yeah.
where I know. I know, like this. At least I know for you and me and Golden Geese, this for me is gonna be. This is
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
coming apart, and honestly, in almost every category. I can't think of like from
Yeah.
acting wise, I got it all in there. For movie, I got it in there. Visuals, I got like everything. And obviously, here's the thing: I doubt it because this to me feels like one of these, like I said, one of the best films I've ever seen in my life, an all timer. But if we have 3 to 4 other movies that I would look and they would surpass it, then fuck, we got a good year of films across coming up.
We're
Because
still early.
yeah,
Jeez, it's just
that's how
April.
good this is. But yeah, right now to me, this is a solid in a lot of categories. And yeah, I already spoiled. It's like a 10. It's like a 20 out of 10. Like I
Yeah.
love this film. It's tough for me when it comes down to going geeks at the end of the year and favorite film because The Batman is a film that I've won for my whole life from a kid to a young adult. I was like reading comics, like this is like we even joke, but like, oh, Riddler's Jigsaw. It's like, oh, Matt Reeves did that. Like that's what I wanted for as a kid. But this is like the movie I never thought I knew I needed. And like I said before, it just hit me of like, one, it's a great film from the dramatic point, from the relationship point, from the sci-fi point, but also just it touched me in a way because it related to so many things that I had experiences with going through my life of, at different points, whether, like I said, the what if thing, whether it is the not feeling good enough and stuff like that, where it's just it's just such a home run of a film. It makes you feel so good. I can't wait to watch this again. I'm definitely gonna try and see it in theaters, but I can't wait for other people to see this. This is one of the best movies I've ever seen, and it's one of my favorite films. And I feel like it's gonna be like that way till the day I die. I just got out of that theater. It's like, man, that was an experience. That was something special. Where everyone they do those, oh, what's a film you'd love to see or a game you'd love to play for the first time, not knowing everything. This will always be one of those films too. Of like, man, I will never get to experience. I can't wait to watch it again, but it'll never be experienced like watching this for the first time and not knowing almost anything of like what's coming. And yeah, what a cinematic piece of art, fantastic. So 10 for me.
Yeah, I really feel like this is gonna be one of those movies that like when I'm an old man, just be like, oh, have you heard this movie? And like still just spreading the gospel of what this experience was, and just see it so many times because it's such a special movie. Like it's a lot of people complain that all there is these days comic book movies and like repeats. It's like absolutely not when you have a studio like A24 putting out movies like this and just many others that they have that are just so unique and just their own and just a really really fresh new experience. And that's not even like limited to A24. You have Jordan Peele doing his own things that again is just very very unique and just just groundbreaking. Honestly, it's just crazy shit. But yeah, I I absolutely am 10 out of 10 on this. Everything that Travis said, I completely agree with. I think this is just such a rewatchable movie, but also one that you can just really I feel like it's one I can have on the background, one that I can sit down and fully get invested in the characters and the story, and just really, like you said already, like it just fills your heart. Like you feel like you want to be a better person after you see this movie, and it's pretty insane thinking that I could be saying that about a movie that has Ratatouille and
Yeah.
Sausage Finger. Like it's just such
MLB
a
trophies.
yeah, no, exactly. Like the layers that this movie has, it's absolutely mind-boggling, and I think this is gonna be one where if you bring it up and people have seen it, you can have a good conversation. Like it'll be like, oh, have
100%.
you seen this movie? Okay,
Yeah.
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 So
Well, there you go. We did it, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I hope you've seen this movie. And like I said, we'll be talking about this probably, I guess, end next year, beginning of, end of next year, end of this year, beginning of next year as more of the geeks see it. But yeah, we're definitely not done talking about this movie. And yeah, well, Kirkland, thank you for joining me for this review. Tons of fun. It was great breaking down this
absolutely.
fucking wild movie. And yeah, when you hear from us next, not be boring.
Peace.